Every living thing longs to be whole. Every living thing yearns to defy death. If from death you returned, yet the part you loved best did not, what then? The corpse laid on a dissection rack, ready for a full surgical examination. Then, like any animal dreaming, the paw twitched. glanced at the vital scanner, expecting to see some anomalous electrical reaction taking place, contracting ancient muscles, but no. What I saw there was a beating heart. I did not revive specimen VK7. Before my eyes, she willed herself back to life. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. Some speak of feeling a connection to something greater than themselves, to which I laughed, as any right-thinking corpus would. Life is profit, profit is life. But in that moment, watching that animal claw her way out of death's dark pit, though I did not admit it to myself, something in me was forever changed. I found her sharp gaze unsettling. The way she would watch my every move from her cage unnerved me. When a visitor came, I would watch VK7 studying their habits. In time, she came to anticipate regular arrivals, having memorized their schedules. On the morning of my 4th shift, I entered my laboratory to find her cage door open and VK7 gone. One consequence of breathing life back into a world is unintentionally resurrecting life forms and viruses one finds less desirable. The infestation is both of those things. Reports returned of some hive sites found destroyed, and then of a large beast found at others. An animal intelligent enough to learn and react to corpus behaviors and patterns. Some claimed it had learned to measure ammunition expenditure to better attack when a target was most vulnerable. Needless to say, almost none who attacked the beast survived. This had to be specimen VK7. I left to join with a flamer team already deployed to a nearby hive. Both team and hive were dead when I arrived, killed by tooth and claw. Fearing for my life, I made to leave, and was apprehended by the sight of a low figure blocking my egress. Specimen VK7. She prowled forward from the shadow of a shattered, snow-blown hive, her paw prints red with blood. I made to open a comm channel to request assistance. VK7 growled low, and I swear this to be true, slowly shook her head. I did not make that call. She padded closer, and I saw the wound on her side. She turned that side toward me, an act of trust, and a request for aid. I unpacked my field kit and carefully went to work. I did not report my experience with specimen VK7. I could not admit why then. But now I can tell you. I felt it would have violated a trust. There I was, a morphology specialist, sworn to the Corpus Empire, and yet, for reasons entirely illogical, I placed loyalty to a wild animal above my life oath, and every doctrine that values self-interest above charity. But keep that confidence I did. I think that is why VK7 brought me the hand. Somehow, she had managed to infiltrate the facility, bypass 2 different security gates, and had gained entry to my laboratory without raising an alarm or my awareness. She held in her jaws a severed hand. Blackened, fossilized, gently, she laid it before me and, with a meaningful glance, turned, pattered away into the shadows, and was gone. I analyzed the hand. What I learned that night, alone in my laboratory, would become an obsession to focus the remainder of my life. Specimen VK7 was tracked to a box canyon 4.3 clicks south-southwest of the atmosphere processing station. The horror of the hives, as she had come to be known, had been deemed unworthy of study and was to be destroyed in her lair. I positioned myself at the entrance to her cave home and waited. To doom myself in the name of some imagined ideal. My own voice screamed in my head. What are you doing? What are you doing? Once, not so long before, I was a man who would have sold this animal for profit. Now I stood in the freezing cold, surrendering all I had for, some would say, nothing. I would say, something greater than myself. They came, picking their way through the snow, heads bowed, pushing against a numbing, slashing wind that froze skin and carried my voice to them. I begged them to stop, pleading VK7's case, with a bomb in my hand. It went about as well as you'd expect. They did not listen. Numbsol is employed, traditionally, as an animal tranquilizer, but converts to an aerosol easily enough. The canister rolled from my fingers and erupted in a geyser of brown-green gas, thrown towards the hunters by that roaring wind, bathing them. I am a better scientist than saboteur. Their respirators dealt with the Numbsol as handily as every other contaminant, and I was promptly arrested. But VK7 did escape. I achieved that much. The atmosphere processor wasn't made for imprisonment or interrogations, but the lack of facilities did not prevent them performing both. Bound and beaten in maintenance closet A5, I told them everything. It doomed me. Zil, the oxygen tech from Reclamation 3, had a previous career in psychological operations for some branch of the military. Therefore, he had been selected to administer to me, to interview me and, ultimately, to execute me. Barrel pressed to my forehead, Zil said he would prefer it if I did not look at him. Obliging as ever, I closed my eyes. There was a sharp crack, then nothing more. I opened my eyes. Zil lay dead at my feet, limp, throat clasped in VK7's jaws. I was corpus no longer. Remaining on Venus would be death for both of us. We had to escape. That was, well, many years ago now. I have spent my life attempting to locate Cora's remains. Contacts informed me she was found, fused but intact, within the Orican terraforming complex itself, and shipped off-world via a notorious Solaris rail agent, who subsequently vanished. I now believe, firmly, that her remains are to be found on the Eidolon Plains. I go there now, entrusting these encrypted logs to my old friend, Konzu, for safekeeping. There I shall put a lifetime of searching to rest. I have never doubted that VK7 survived Venus. And to this day, I still believe that before I leave this life forever, I shall one day look up from my writings to find a familiar figure standing in my doorway, alongside her Kavat. I am Sigor Savar, a better man, as it turns out, than a scientist.
In the dying days of the Orican, with forums and promenades still blood-wet from Tenno betrayal, a colossal sentient descended upon ancient Ur, falling from distant stars to deliver upon Orican a terrible and final ruin. Tower upon tower fell to its weapons, but one withstood, the Tower of the Unum. The Tenno scattered, but one remained, Gara. She and the Unum, inseparable. The Unum, lodestone of our people, and subject of 100 stories herself. The sentient was a deformed creature, twisted and massive, sent from some dark fold of distant space. A warped thing wounded by daylight. By night it was a terror, felling tower after tower, citadel after citadel. But by day it hid, blinded and pained. It was during the day that Gara roamed, yearning to strike it from creation while it cowered, weakened and blind, to safeguard her beloved Unum. But never could Gara find it.
Hi.
By night, the sentient was abroad, its titanic mass casting a terrible shadow across the land, the mass of it railing against the walls of the tower, yet kept at bay by the exertion of the Unum's colossal will and the sacrifice of our faithful. But such exertions could not be maintained forever. Gara yearned to strike out, to lash and tear at the monstrosity that threatened her love, but the Unum forbade it. At night, the sentient was at the height of its power, and Gara's light would make her the most tempting of targets to a creature of such profound darkness. Gara's death would be certain. No, a different strategy was required. The sentient prowled and pressed and failed, never risking too much, for the sentient could not reproduce. What it lost forever. It had killed many cities before, felled many towers, but this little one prevailed. Why, it pondered in many voices, was that? The Unum knew she could not defend forever, nor could her faithful throw their bodies against the sentient in perpetuity. So she gave her followers some of her blood.
I can't sleep.
Her refined temple kuva, and they in turn gave it to the animals of the land. And the animals became an extension of her, and she became an extension of them. And the animals roamed and searched, and they found where the sentient chose to hide itself.
Oh. Well, you're not the only one.
The sentient, torn between its most coveted prize and the mortal threat, broke from the tower and turned back on itself to defend itself from noble Gara. But Gara's eyes were not for the sentient, but for the glittering man-sized device resting just beyond the gates. It had not been there before, but it was there now. It swatted Gara from the sky, drew it to herself, meaning to end her life there and then. The battle was terrible. Gara sustained injuries she would not survive. But in her final moments, brave Gara seized upon the device her beloved Unum had crafted, seized it to her breast, and allowed the sentient to draw her in one final time. Toward its body, toward its core, toward the seat of its intelligence. From within, the sentient unfurled myriad feelers, probes, tendrils, viciously toothed and made for killing. They swept toward Gara violently, and the glass warrior made no defense. Her defense was her final attack. The device detonated, and the Unum cried out as night lit as day. The battle, the terror, was ended. The tower wall shook. The sentient's body shuddered, racked by a cacophonous energy. Forests fell as piece after piece, giant body after giant body, crashed to the plains and marshes and flatlands. Animals fled in spreading waves from pounding sky-high walls of dust, angered and whipped to fury by the death of a god. The last of Gara's energy arced from body to body, machine to machine, piece to piece, a horizon-wide applause of light, beautiful and terrible. And then, silence. All was still. The Onum's adherents wandered through the haze, calling for one another, lost in a miasma. Husbands seizing onto wives, children onto parents. It was over. Gara was never seen again. The sentients then became as they are now, senseless, wandering, yearning for a unity they sense more than remember. And the Unum? The Unum survived, alone, for centuries. Until today, when you stand here, reading this. This is Onko, Cetus Archivist, with my translation of the Gara legend. In this time, two young people were in love. The woman, Erfriha, and the man, Mirza. Erfriha was from the Yingbin Yai clade, meaning great bond, a very old and wealthy compact of bonded families.
The system continues to fall into chaos. Check navigation for active invasions. There's the torsion beam device, but there's in the void key. Find it. The assassination is here. Wipe them out. Quick, pick up the key. You got the key. Now back to the portal. You do not want to be on this side of the portal when that key melts down. Objective complete. The void key and fusion beam device are out of commission. The enemy will not be returning anytime soon. Tenno, there are still undiscovered supply caches in the area. You want to locate them before leaving. Another job well executed.